for types of situations, just be there. Be a listening ear. You don't have to tell folks how to necessarily grieve. You don't have to tell folks how to feel. This is not the time to preach. This is not the time to...
What she just said.
Right. This is not the time to preach. Please put that down. Be a listening ear. I remember stating that during one of our, I think the first show for Beginning to Talk Radio, saying you don't understand, and it's okay not to understand, and to sit with that. To know that in order to help someone, you don't have to understand what they're going through, but just to be that listening ear, just to be that support system for someone is extremely powerful.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that folks can do, is to rally or support around each other during this time. But for folks that are already suffering from a mental illness, right? So for folks that are already suffering from depression on a normal basis, and then seasonal depression kicks in, and it becomes, comorbid, to the main disorder, or like you said, OCD. That can be another thing. Trauma, that can be another thing. So a lot of times, when I say comorbid, meaning there can be multiple diagnoses at one time, right? So anxiety and depression can go hand in hand if not treated correctly. The same thing with OCD and depression, trauma and depression, major depression versus seasonal depression, those types of things. So there are things that folks just go through already, and if you're already going through that, then during the holiday season, you really need to be attuned and aware. This is the time to take off work. This is the time to intentionally schedule time for yourself, no matter what. Nothing else matters right now. You have to attune to your own mental health. This is the time to rest. This is not the time to add additional things to your plate to stress you out. Stress is a trigger. Stress is a trigger for most mental illness, right? So stress is a real trigger for trauma, depression. It's something that fuels that cycle, right? It fuels those thoughts and the behaviors and emotions and everything that keep us in that cycle of depression, right? So if we know this, if this is something that we know, then we need to pay attention to ourselves during this time. If you pay attention to yourself, then your child will see that and maybe start paying attention to herself, because that's learned behavior. We see mommy going and going and going and going like the Energizer Bunny, but we don't see mommy stopping and taking a break. We see mommy as the superwoman. And that's great to see them as a superwoman on one hand. But then that's really bad to see them as a superwoman all of the time. Because when do you rest?
Right.
And what really is your kryptonite? If that's the case.
The plague that comes through Louisville,
Right.
Kentucky.
Right. And that's something, I'm sitting here, I'm sharing the live right now, and a couple of folks had tuned in here, and one of them, he said sometimes a person may not even realize that they are experiencing depression, and that is so true.
Very true.
A lot of times folks don't realize that is the cycle in which they're in to even identify. So, if you are intentionally withdrawn during this holiday season, okay? So these are some things to look for. If we are intentionally withdrawn during the holiday season, if we are feeling ourselves having more crying spells, if we feel ourselves clocking out more, right? So we're just popping off for no particular reason. Like I said, this is particular to both males and females. On one hand, males can display this behavior differently, like popping off, getting into arguments, like you said, binge drinking is one of them, any type of
Not wanting to leave the house.
substance abuse, right? Or even just playing the game excessively, right? So things excessively. So a lot of times, I see a lot of men stay home and they play their game, right? And that's fine, but watch how much. Watch how much you play your game. How much time that you put excessively into those types of things. I'm not saying if it's giving you joy, of course, keep doing it. But men do also have these same types of feelings and behaviors.
Right. Okay, so real quick, we're going to shout out this week's sponsors. Shout outs to Candy Brews by Lemon Drop Rolling Bar. Shout outs to Diamond Elite Design Customs. Shout outs to Truce Tattoos located at 3510 Taylor Boulevard. Shout outs to Meeting in the Ladies Room Fantasy and Pepper Party series. Ladies who are tuned in, please stay tuned in for Diva Talk after this conversation, because we're going to give you some information about some events that they have got coming up. And shout outs to GalaxyCon Louisville, which is this weekend. Come see me live. I will be there. No, I'm not dressing up, guys. But I will be there, and I will be giving away stuff. I've got some of my team for Power 106 that's going to be there giving away things. We're going to have a good, fun time. It's a good family fun time. So definitely come on through, see us, take some pictures, have some fun. Do something out the ordinary, y'all. All right. So one of the things I want to kind of touch back on is, like you said, somebody says sometimes people don't even know that they're depressed. Depression looks so different for everyone. So what are some non-common signs that you're going through a depression? What are some non-common signs?
There's a couple of different things. Let me just clarify. Are you saying non-common signs like crying, looking?
To me, okay, if you stereotypically, because people stereotype mental health, mental illnesses, mental disorders, what things look like. Because back in the day, our community, black folk, did not acknowledge what mental health was, what it looked like. Oh, that's just such and such. Oh, Junebug he always like that. He's just a little touchy. This person's a little special. Right. Oh, they just mean. Right. They just the angry black woman. Okay, so there's stereotypes. Right. So stereotypically, when people think of depression, people think of suicidal, crying, in the bed, what you see in the movies with the tissues, eating ice cream out the bucket, watching all these little sad movies. But there's other signs of depression, like you were saying, for men. It could be being obsessive about their games. It could be junk food eating, binging, food binging. Like I said, about people drink more. People don't realize it, but if you think about it and you stop and say, the first 8 months I drink socially, but the last 3 months of the year, I drink a little heavier. And I always think it's because, we're hanging out with the family. It's the holidays. We turn it up. Right. That might not always be the case. Right. Some people drink through grief and don't realize that they're doing it. Some people drink through depression and don't really realize they do it. And then the rest of the year they don't do it.
They're an alcoholic all the way around. And
and then it gets really worse. Right. And everybody sees it.
Right. So, okay. So there are a lot of different symptoms of depression that we can talk about. So I brought up, a lot of times I go, and it's a good go-to for you all as well, if you all wanted to, for the audience as well. I know I'm speaking to Facebook Live. But you all can go to webmd.com. I find that it's very user-friendly for some folks. And type in the 9 symptoms of depression, or just type in symptoms of depression. 9 symptoms always come up. And so we can talk about this cross-culturally with no issue. Okay. So the first one here on the top of the list is trouble concentrating, remembering details, and making decisions, right? So during seasonal depression, this is the time, or any type of depression, honestly, this is the time where we do not make long-lasting life decisions. We do not do that during this time. Let me repeat that. A lot of times, folks, during this time of year, will let their emotions lead them and will make permanent decisions that they have to deal with for the rest of their lives based off of an emotional experience. So don't let your situation become your life. So that is something that I always tell folks all the time when dealing with depression overall.
Okay.
So that's the first one. Also, remembering details and concentrating. So, if you are already a forgetful type of person, if you're already the person that needs to set the alarm to make sure that you get up, or make sure that X, Y, and Z gets done, make sure this is the time of year where you are writing your sticky notes, where you are reminding yourselves of those types of things, because a lot of times when we are depressed, we can become absent-minded. So the next one down is fatigue, right? So fatigue. With the fatigue, you're not really sleeping too much during this time. A lot of times you can find yourself being very, very restless, which is actually on this on the list, and I'm going to talk about fatigue and restlessness together, because a lot of times folks can sleep but not rest. And there is a difference.
To that one.
You're right. There is a difference. If you can get sleep, you can get a couple hours here, a couple hours there, and that is different from insomnia, right? Mm-hmm. But a lot of times during this time of year, when folks have seasonal depression, they sleep, but they don't necessarily rest. So when you get up, you still have this feeling of fatigue because your body is not relaxed, right? So that's another thing. You shaking your head like, girl, I already got it. Yeah, all the above. So insomnia is another thing. The early morning wakefulness, right, or sleeping way too much can be insomnia. So depression, insomnia does not always mean no sleep. It can mean sleeping way too much. So I don't know, about 20 hours out of the day, that's a little too much. You need to get up, do something, brush your teeth, all the above. But
wash your butt. How about that? Just saying.
So, for those types of things. But no, honestly, but early morning wakefulness is another thing. I suffer from this myself ever since my husband passed away this past June. I get up every morning. It doesn't matter if I go to sleep at 4 a.m. I will still wake up during shift change for the nurses at the hospital at 7, as if I was still at the hospital, right? So for me, no matter what, early morning wakefulness is a real big thing there. Now, one thing that goes with that is irritability. So you can find yourself a little bit more irritable during this time of year, and you need to understand that you have to give yourself a break. When you are feeling irritable, and y'all know when if someone is starting to get on your last nerve, or if it's the next thing that happens will get on your nerves, no matter whom it is, because of the previous things during the day that has already happened that have compounded your day. All of that it can lead to irritability, and all of that irritability can be displaced onto your loved ones and the folks that you really care about when you go home, versus controlling or facing the situation head on when it happens, right? So this is not the time of year to let things compound. I am trying to get you all to understand that you have to de-stress. You have to. Right? So making that time for yourself is very, very important. Okay, so okay, you got another one?
Okay, so
yes, I messed you one day because you set up.
I was gonna redirect us a little bit. Okay, so the topic, of course, third Wednesday every month now is self-love, self-care, and the reason why I brought the subtopic of family holidays and mental health is because I feel like people don't stop to love themselves and take care of themselves because they're worried about everybody else or putting on face for the family because it's the holidays.
Yeah, that mask that we never take off.
Yeah, and like we were talking about toxicity, and I feel like there's toxicity within a lot of our families. And a lot of people feel like they have to suck it up or have to deal with it because, that's my family, that's my blood. And I'm like, no. No. So you telling me if you had a whole serial killer in the family, you gonna sit up and suck it up and sit at Thanksgiving table with them?